Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host Manoj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with Larry Weidel. So, Larry is a highly accomplished entrepreneur whose unique perspective on life and business has led to numerous successes. With expertise in multiple fields, including finance, insurance, real estate, art, Larry has a rare insight that has helped him develop winning strategies that are effective across different industries and situations. His deep passion for learning and constant pursuit of knowledge has been instrumental in his success, and he brings the same level of dedication to every project he undertakes. Larry's success in business and finance is built on the foundation of artistic principles, which has enabled him to turn his life and business into a beautiful work of art that never gets old. He's a USA Today best-selling author for his book Serial Winner and has over $6.6 billion under management. He has sold 82 $6 billion in phase two force active life insurance policies and has received numerous awards and recognitions, including the Leader of Leaders Award in 2017, a Greatest Communicator Award from A.L. Williams. Larry's dedication to his craft has paid off in multiple ways, including being a member of the Pramerica Circle of Champions and being recognized as a top 10 career cash earner in 2019 and 2022. Larry's passion for success and dedication to artistic principles have allowed him to achieve incredible victories and help others do the same. He has helped numerous champions achieve their goals and do great things quickly, simply, making him a valuable asset to his clients. Overall, Larry's wide ranging interest, curiosity, commitment to excellence makes him an accomplished entrepreneur and a true inspiration to many. Welcome, Larry.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that nice eulogy you gave me.
Oh,
So,
no, no, no. Well, this is just a small slice of what you have accomplished. We'll go over that. So, in your own words, maybe now you can share with us your life journey. I know a little bit about it, and it is really fascinating. Your journey. So, why don't you share with us, with our audience, how you got started and what has led you to this level of success?
I grew up the son of an Air Force sergeant, and we moved 27 times by the time I was 21. And so I grew up with a great exposure to the world, but a great, I guess, a great desire to not be in a position myself in my career where somebody could send a letter any day in the mail and you're uprooted and you had to go to someplace else in the world, not of your own choosing. And so that's what you live with in you're in the military. And so I don't know if my father made somebody mad when he worked at the Pentagon. He was working at the Pentagon when I was born. So I don't know if he somehow offended somebody who was in charge of moving when he was there, but and that guy never left. But anyway, yeah, we moved all the time. The good thing is that I did get a chance to spend formative years over in Europe, Germany, France, Italy. 3 years in Italy was a early teenager. And it was there that, you have to do something as a teenager. So, we played basketball. We went to the beach. We went to the air base and shot pool with the GIs. But the other thing, we took advantage of all the things they had. And they had all kind of things to train the GIs on. And so most of the GIs didn't take advantage of any of that, by the way. And so they had photo labs and, free supplies and all that stuff. So I got into photography at an early age because I had tried the painting. I did the painting, actually. In fact, we were refinishing the painting that one of the paintings I did back then in the early 60s, one of my first paintings. We were refinishing it in my studio in West Palm Beach now as we speak. But I got involved in painting and art because we were going to the museums all the time. You're going to Florence, and before that, I was in New York City. My father was stationed there, and so over there they take the kids. Now I don't know what they do, but I mean they take you to all the national museums of history and Museum of Modern Art and all of those things. So you get exposed to it. Big art culture, maybe, as opposed if you were in Oklahoma. When I was in Oklahoma and Georgia, we didn't have high school trips, junior high trips, elementary school trips to the Museum of Modern Art. That would have been a week-long trip. But when you're in New York, you can get on the bus and, there you go. So a lot of opportunities there to get exposed to culture. And when I went to Italy, same thing, a lot of painting. Italy is just sick with art. So you get caught up in it and you have to do something, again. But I did not, because I was exposed to the greats, I quickly realized, I don't have the patience to become this master sketcher and painter of realistic stuff. So I went to abstracts pretty much almost immediately. And I did one or two realistic ones, and that's what I've got, landscapes, things like that. That's where we're refinishing now. I'm glad I've got one to remember them by. But it's been abstracts ever since, and photography for the realistic stuff. And so I've always done that. And I left there and I went. We went back to the United States, into the Hamptons. And so in the Hampton, big art scene there. And I never really liked business. I like sports. I played sports all year long. I like competition, but I didn't like business. And because I didn't understand business was sports, it's competition. I didn't know that. I thought it was sitting and shuffling paper. My idea of business was that you were an administrative assistant to somebody who had all the fun. And so I had no interest in business. I wish I'd had somebody educated on it. But again, you grow up, you're a product of where the people you're around. And my father, and parents were doing good to survive. And he came from a broken home in New Jersey, and he joined the military. He felt at home in the military, but he didn't know anything about life. My grandfather didn't. He worked for the bus bus company down in Camden, New Jersey for 40 years. It says he didn't know anything. So there's nobody in there feeding insights about getting ahead in life and being your own business, and you can be somebody because basically they wanted you to do good in school. The standard dream that they thought worked, that it hadn't worked for them, but do good in school, hopefully go to college, and then get a good job, and things will turn out well for you. But the idea of doing something exciting, something fun, something big with your life was not even a possibility. Unless it was in sports, and I didn't have the athletic ability for, to do it in sports. So, I did architecture. I went into architecture because there's nobody up in the Hamptons who could show me a career path in either music or big music scene up there, but either music or photography or painting. So I said, well, I met some architects, and so I said, I'll do architecture. That's close enough. And that worked for a couple of years. But eventually I wound up at Georgia Tech, and the reality is that architecture is a tough thing. And even if you're good at it, and even if it's like they say about golf, you have to be willing to hit millions of bad shots to get to where you can hit good ones. And in architecture, I'm sure it's a lot of fun to design great buildings and everything, but you have to go through such a baton death march to get to where you're an architect. You have to go.
Mm.
You have to go through these 5, 6, 7 year schools. You have to then go and be a draftsman for 3 or 4 years at minimum wage. And no, I wasn't going to.
Mm.
And then you go in, you're in an entry level job as a starter architect. And then maybe when you're 35, 40, you start to make some money and start your own firm. That was just too long of a wait. I wanted to get out and make things happen. But the one thing I did have was I learned growing up working in part-time jobs is I wanted to be at the top or near the top of whatever I did, because I saw, when you're in high school, the jobs you get on the bottom are the labor jobs and minimum wage jobs. And I saw that I had a bunch of those, and I found very quickly it was obvious that you're treated the worst, you're treated like dirt, you're paid like dirt, and there's no real satisfaction or reward. You might feel I did a great job, but then nobody else appreciates it or notices it, or values it. And so to me, it said, I don't know. I didn't know what I was saying, but I said to myself, whatever it takes, I'm going to do whatever it takes to where when I get out in the world, I'm doing something where I can be on the high end of average income and success, and where the fun and the good things are, and 24 hours in a day, it's obvious you can figure out how to get there. So that was the way was always my approach. Plus, I didn't want to have a boss. And so that could tell me that could move me around the country. I didn't mind having a boss, but I didn't want to have a boss that could dictate where I lived and all of that. So yeah, I graduated in building construction, because once I realized architecture was going to take forever, I just wanted to get out of Georgia Tech as fast as possible and do something. And so building construction was right up my alley. Built 100 houses in 4 years out of Georgia Tech. And from that, I found out what a crappy industry construction is from, it's just too undependable. When you go out there and you see guys, back then it was a 7-year cycle. They build houses in 7 years. They're, they go from the top of the world to the bottom in 7-year cycles, and they go through their life like that. They successful, they're selling everything, and their family's doing good. Kids are in the great schools, go on the great vacations, living in great homes, and then all of a sudden, the economy goes down, and they've got all these houses they built out there that are not closed, and people can't get financing to buy them, and so they're paying the mortgage. So they're paying like 7 or 8 mortgages, and before long they're bankrupt. And then they have the divorce, and then they have alcoholism, and then and then finally the industry will turn around and they'll get out of rehab, and they'll get the second wife, and then they'll get business going again. It's just a terrible way to live. And because of the economy, it's like most of these guys are working hard. I knew these guys. You see these guys, and they're not a bunch of sleaze bags. They're hardworking people that the economy just cuts them off at the knees, man. And nobody really talks about that. There's nobody. If you're a builder, nobody can tell you which price range, which subdivision, when to have houses ready. So you go out there and throw the dice and get a construction loan. But in 9 months, if that thing doesn't sell, you got to pay those mortgage payments. And it's just a very risky, they call them spec houses, speculative. You build a contract, like if you go out and you find yourself a builder, you get a contract. Well, then he knows what he's going to get paid. But most of it's speculative. And so if you build these spec houses, they don't sell in 9 months, you're screwed. And so very hard to be a builder and survive. So I said to myself, what's the best industry? Because the whole time, I did the art and the photography and everything along, but this is what I was going to do to support myself. And so again, in my adult life, I never ran across somebody who could be a role model to follow for. You need role models to follow, I think. And so, I didn't have anybody in my family, didn't have my circle of friends, any artists, photographers. And so it was a matter of doing it in business. So I said, what industry? I'm going to get the right industry. Well, the one industry that made it through the Great Depression was financial services.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting in financial services. They got all the names of the big buildings and all the towns in the country. I'm gonna get in financial services. I'm gonna have some stability to my life financially. I don't want to be starting over. I didn't mind working because in construction I was working 80, 90 hours a week. I worked for a manic. I learned what a manic depressive person was. Quite an education. And the 10th of the month, he was lousy at paying the bills and everything, but he would get his neck would swell up. He was in charge of paying the bills. He was Mr. Inside. I was Mr. Outside. We sold all of our houses, but he always priced them way too low. We sold them way too early, and then we didn't have money. And so the 10th of the month, he'd go around like this. It'd be impossible to work with this guy. And I had acid in my stomach. It was terrible. I mean, I don't know if, I had a great education, and working for somebody who is going to cause you to it's going to break down your health and everything like that. So I had stress like you can't believe, mainly because of that knucklehead. And, he meant well, but he just did not know how to live his life and run his business in an orderly way, I guess. But he thought he did. But we did a great job. Everybody loved our houses. And the proof of that is the fact that the year after I left, he was elected president of the Atlanta Home Builders Association. Now, there's only about 50 million home builders in Atlanta in any given time. And so he was number one. So obviously we had a good reputation, and I built the houses. So I had a little something to do with that,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I was gone. I could have got a job back in construction, but I wanted to do financial service. I wanted to have something different, something fun, something where you are unlimited. And plus where, you're not controlled by like the oil embargo in the Mideast. You know what I'm saying? Our policies of Goldman Sachs and Jimmy Carter that create a loan crisis and nobody can get a loan. The banks are shut down, which is the early 70s. It's like, no, I want to do my job and I want to be able to survive. And so that's why I got in financial services, which was I had no ability, no skills, but I always had the attitude that, growing up, I could do anything. It was just a matter of what is it that's interesting? What would be fun? What could you get excited about? So I made up my mind. I took 9 months to find out where I was going to park myself because I knew that was important. Because you don't want to be hopping from job to job. You want to get in and you want to stick. You want to, it's just like investing. You want to put your money in a stock and then you pull it out and then you put your money over here. Pretty soon you have no money. And the thing is, I had my youth and I had a wife and I had two young boys, basically babies. And I needed to make some income, but I needed to get in and I need to climb the ladder. I need to move up. I didn't need to come in and flounder around at the bottom. And so it took me 4 years to kind of learn it and get comfortable with it. But I got solid enough in the program to where in the the fourth year or so, we moved up and started expansion operation up in North Carolina. And at that point, I was pretty much ready to break out. The company was at a stage of breaking out. And so that's what we did. I went up there to recruit, train, develop, open offices all through the Carolinas, Virginia. And the goal was 200 recruits the first year in 79. I recruited 56, but I learned how to recruit bigger numbers because we were experimenting all the time and analyzing and putting systems in place. And so we were ready to go the second year and recruited 1,800 then, recruited 7,200 the third year, and then 83 we recruited, about 82, 83 recruited 15,000. So about 25,000 people. And so from that, we opened offices all over the country. People moved. And lot of fun, a lot of excitement, and that's where it all started. But a lot of the over the years, I've learned that a lot of the systems, and you have to you have to figure things out. A lot of develop systems. You got to put people to work and make sure they're doing the right things and make sure you can keep up with how many numbers they're doing. And so a lot of those systems came and and then you're putting on meetings and you're coming up with contests and you got to promote them and get people excited about them. And so to do that, there's a lot of there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of branding. I mean, you have a new style, a new program, because you're working with salespeople. And with salespeople, they get bored quickly. So you have to continue to come up with something that's going to be new, if it's some dumb, it's got to sound exciting. It's got to make sense for the first time you explain it. So that's what we would do. We come up with programs, game plans, contests. We had systems for monitoring the growth, opening the offices, keeping up with people. But a lot of that realized later, a lot of that design strategy came from art. Because I'd been over there in Italy. I'd read not all of the art books, but I've read tons of art books and just get ideas of composition and colors and, making a pretty picture, or something that would stand the test of time. And there's a lot of parallels that going into building a business that'll stand the test of time and structured correctly. And, composition visually, there's a lot of principles that go to composition in terms of a business, working together, big things, little things, as they move around, motion. And so I didn't know that at the time, but I kind of look back and think that I had an unfair advantage. Number one, from the art training, but then also from building houses, because in building houses, you go through like 25, 26, 30 different stages, depending on how you divide it up, from breaking ground to moving the people in, where the 18-wheeler pulls up to the front door with the movers and everybody piles into the house. From that process, a lot of stages you go through. And when you're building a lot of houses during the year, you have to hit deadlines, like when it comes time, like August, they move in August and the kids go to school, get into the school system. And so, a lot of timing, but making that happen gave me a big education in delegating and scheduling. So that's a lot of the background that's where the art wound up playing a big role in it. And I had no idea what one thing was going to lead to another.
Yeah.
So that's how I've kind of evolved into whatever I've learned, I've passed on to in building organizations. And, I've done thousands of weekend training sessions and retreats of, 3-day, 2-day, 1 day. I'm kind of like somebody who's in a band or famous bands. They played every stadium in the country. They played every venue. I've got one of our guys was a choral. Had a big choir that he did on the side, and he's like world famous. But they played for the Pope. They go around the world. But every arena in the world where you could get 2,000 to 10,000 people and put on a concert or whatever, they played it. And that's kind of like how I've been around the country in terms of doing manager meetings for that era, anyway. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so you learn things, from doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the fascinating thing. Like a few things I picked up from your story is like a lot of people just go through life and they just take it as it is, as it comes. But I think you took a different approach. You knew what you wanted, and you took the time to figure out how to get there, rather than just seeing how life takes you somewhere. You said, okay, I want to have this type of life, and you designed for it. Is that sort of?
It's exactly right. You know, you're not aware of how you go about things a lot, but like one time we had my son brought a guy, one of his friends down from North Carolina, and they came by my a townhouse down there, and the guy marked it. He remarked, he said, "Man, it really smells great in here." You know, he said, "What?" And I said, I didn't even know I said it. My son reminded me later. I said, "Yeah, that's by design." You know,
Mm.
when I go in the house, I like it to smell right. You know, so I
Yeah.
have certain things put out around. You know, and he's the guy that basically got his attention. Like, oh, you can design that, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much everything. You know, when you start, you're surviving. But to me, winning is being able to make things turn out the way you would prefer they turn out. And then you should put energy into that, because it's when you're fired up that you're going to be most effective.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're fired up, you can fire other people up. And so if you live in a place you think is a dump, well, as soon as you can, go to get the resources, figure out where you can get excited about living, in terms of housing or a different geographical location. I remember riding around in New York with a taxi driver just griping like crazy, grumble, grumble, grumble. Is this, that, the other, the city here, and the traffic there, and the mayor there, and the police here, and and the striking there, and the sanitation there, and the unions there, and the mobs here, and the gangs there. And it's like, finally I said, "Why don't you move?" You know what he said? "Where would I go?" I said, "Anywhere."
Yeah.
Anywhere, And so the thing is, you can go through, you're a victim, why does this, why does that, take your energy and figure out how you can get yourself in a place where you can be excited and not feel persecuted all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll take some time to do that, but get on that track. It just doesn't make sense to me to sit there and be miserable all the time. When there's a chance you could do something about it. But like right now, I live in Aspen, Colorado, and Palm Beach, because I can,
Mm.
and I don't like to go to resorts. I like to live in resorts.
Yeah.
And I checked out where to, like if I'm a billionaire, where am I likely to live? Well, on the East Coast, it's Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And then where do they have? If I'm a billionaire or a multi-billionaire, I'll probably have myself a Gulfstream.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they have the Gulfstream convention every year? Because it's the spot where their more highest density of Gulfstream owners live. Where is that? Aspen, Colorado. So I said, I don't have to be a billionaire to live in Aspen, Colorado. I don't have to be a billionaire to live in Palm Beach. And so, I don't have to wait to, you hit the jackpot, this, that, and the other. You could start enjoying that lifestyle now, because, I went for years trying to figure out how I could live, because I like to ski. And I like golf, but nothing like I like to ski. And I went probably 15 years trying to figure out how I could move from North Carolina and run my business. This was before cell phones. Trying to figure out how I could run my business out of San Moritz, because that just seemed like the Palm Beach of Switzerland. I don't know that it is, but probably Verbier is a better place. But anyway, one of those. But I really spent 15 years trying to figure out how I could structure the business. When I would come in, when I would do the manager meetings. What reports would come into me and what schedule. But then we had a convention, or one of the guys had a convention in Snowmass out here in the sister city of Aspen. And the golf course is right out there in the middle. And I said, this is like, a village in Switzerland. This is like being in the valleys in Switzerland. You look around and all of these chalets, it's like chalets around everywhere. And I said, I can just move here and I don't have to worry about that transatlantic flying and putting up with the nitpicking Swiss nanny state they have, where they spank you for, pulling up 6 inches over the stop line paint driver. They'll come out and scold you for this and scold you. It's like, I'd rather be in the United States, eat American food, and not have to worry about all that travel. And so that's why I started thinking about, let's start looking at Aspen. And because so many of the people in Europe fly to Aspen to ski. It's like, why am I flying to Europe? When I can Aspen right here and I can just live here. So, that's why. And people say, "Where do you live?" And I go Aspen half of the year and Palm Beach half of the year, a little more than half because tax purposes. And then they'll go in there, wow, that sounds like a good life. I said, yeah. It's by design.
It's by design. Yeah, I think that's the key. Like, a lot of people do not realize it and don't know what they want. Even if they know what they want, they are not proactive enough to design it that way, right? And then the other thing I observed in your story is that your exposure to this really high caliber masterpieces, I believe it set the standard for you, because when you see something at which is the world's best, like you want to be in that category, right? Like, you want to achieve, because if you grow up looking at mediocre things, you think that is the level that most people can achieve. But when you're exposed to like superlatives, and then the final thing is like mixing these concepts from art to business and sports, and I think that's another thing that a lot of people do not really appreciate enough, that what we learn in one field can be applied in another. In fact, when we do that, it's actually much more effective, much more efficient, much more result oriented, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all learning. The thing is, we're all learning, but what good is learning if you don't apply some of this stuff? Once you learn it, try and apply it as quick as you can, and then you can move forward, and you start adding some of these things, and you start elevating yourself compared to people around you that are wanting to do that, but they just never apply anything. And then they look at you like you're some kind of genius. It's like, no, I just I got the idea, I liked it, and I did it. It's just like nothing genius about it. It's just about like not being, if I don't like something, I don't like it. I'm never going to like it. Why should I put up with it? It makes me feel bad. I want to live as long as possible, be as strong as possible, be as exciting as possible. And what fun is it to be a miserable old person that's just complaining about, if you want to start complaining, I can out-complain you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the longer you live, the more things you know to complain about. But what good does it do? And so,
exactly.
But I'm getting ready to, there's principles if you're smart, you start operating according to principles that work for you, that keep you online. You have to keep yourself online. You have to control your thinking, Manoj.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'm saying? You can't just, I get mad and then I throw a temper tantrum, and then I want to do this and then I do that, and then I do something I feel bad about. Then I've got to waste another 2-3 weeks making amends for an explosion of something, anger, or I did, it's just like you're driving on the highway. Everybody driving on the highway out in, around North California, where those the great views and the Big Sur and all of that. Everybody's had the idea, man, it would be fun just to gun it and fly off the cliff. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, take this car and accelerate and just shoot it in the air. Well, why don't I do that? Because it would not end well. And just because you have an impulse, you learn these guidelines, these principles allow you to control your impulses and also propel you to act when you might you can't think about things forever. Inspiration doesn't last forever. So when you're fired up about something, you're thinking about something, like we had something come up in our office this week, and we had one of our people that found a better opportunity. They're moving on down the road, and it caused us to look at what they're doing and figuring out how we can do it, better, and get how we're going to run the ad to get the person to replace it. And so I'm talking with the home office about it, and so the occasion came up. Now, this is something I should keep up with and everything, but you can't keep up with everything. But when the occasion comes, it's like dive into it and say, well, how do I want that to go? That's what I wanted to say. Well, what needs to get done? How do I want to have that done? Rather than just keep the same person doing it the same way at the same desk, because that's how we've done it for the past 16 years.
Yeah, that's true.
We do that better. And so as the occasions come up, you take advantage of it. That's how I used to do it running the business. It's just like, a certain problem or a certain situation, either good or bad, comes up. It's like, okay, what can we learn from this? What adjustments can we make? And, to make it more to our liking and make it more likely that we'll continue to grow. But we're going to have next week, a week after next, we're going to have a 45th anniversary of our first company full-timer retreat in Unicoi, Georgia, in Helen, Georgia, north of Atlanta, and big conference center there. And so I was talking to the meeting planners today about, what to cover, and they said everybody wants to know how did you guys got started. I said, well, so they've got a bunch. There's not many of us left standing that were around back then, but everybody wants to know what was in our mind. What do we do? How do we go about it? And I find that, I started, so they're trying to get your slides together. What's your presentation? And so I said, well, let's just get some things and just flash some, send it, some ideas up on the wall. But I started rattling off these principles, and I don't know, before it was 15 of them just rolled off my tongue because I use them every day.
So what are those? Let's go through a few of them.
Well, one is grow or die. People don't accept that. You're going to get better or you're going to get worse in everything. Your business, your health, your relationships with your wife, your employees, your kids. Your teeth are going to get better, keep getting better, or they're going to get worse. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how can you, your nutrition, your fitness, all of these, every aspect of your life, it's fluid. Because we look, it's easy to look at companies out there and say, I just was talking with a guy earlier today, and it's easy to look at companies. He said he's always a big student of companies. And it's easy to look at them and say, okay, they're always changing. You always have to adjust. But we have to adjust too, every phase of our life. And so that's why there's always, in every phase of our life, there's room for improvement. And that's one of the principles. Things can always be better. So it's grow or die. How do you get better? Things can always be better. And you don't have to improve everything dramatic. If you improve by 1% a month, like in sales, like if you make one more sale, one more appointment a week compared to everybody else in the office, you're going to crush them. By the end of the year, you're going to crush them. If you make one improvement as a leader and you're thinking about your business and you're saying you make one improvement a week, your business is going to be radically transformed over the course of a year. And it's done organically. In other words, you're not trying to make a big list and change stuff. You're thinking like, what's the next thing that needs to be changed? And then you go work on that. So it becomes a natural progression, and you don't have to go and get an MBA so I can learn all this stuff. No, you just run your business, and naturally things come to you, and you do those. You like
Yeah.
when it comes to you do it, but you be specific to be dynamic. You've got to nail things. You can't just like be better. People say things like, "Well, you got to do self-improvement." What kind of self-improvement?
Mm.
Like grow or die. They'll say, "Okay, grow or die." Yeah, grow numbers. Everything comes down to numbers in business. And so in your personal life, a lot of it's numbers too, in terms of your health and measurements and things like that. But you got to know the numbers. You got to do the numbers if you're going
Mm.
to succeed. And so, like, how can you not grow the numbers, activity, sales, of your business and expect your income to go up? If you want your income and your revenue to go up, you got to grow your numbers. And so, what can you improve? Everything is capable of improving. Every little aspect, every business, like our lives, you have so many different aspects to your life, things you do during the course of the day. And so your business, same thing. So many different areas, and they all can be improved.
Yeah.
Little improvements here, little improvements there, and they just stack up. And
Yeah.
so people that are it's one, you got to be, to me, it's just operating with wisdom. It's like the proverb says, you got you have two kind of men. Yeah, men, women in the world. You have the wise ones and you have the foolish ones.
Mm.
You look at yourself, what am I going to be? Am I going to run the business? Am I going to be wise on how I run my life? Or am I going to be foolish? Well, the wise people obviously operate with different principles, different approaches than the fools, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so, a wise man can start doing something foolish, and then all of a sudden, you wind up with a bunch of foolish results. But it's like your pattern to your life that you set.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like kids need to be trained on how the world is, so they can make wise decisions for themselves rather than
Yeah.
stupid decisions that are usually wise decisions are longer range. You got your eye. When we come in and we bring people into business, and they're usually the people that last and have the biggest success are people that are thinking long term. They want a career. They got it in their mind how they want to be a year from now or 2 years from now. They're not like all their hopes and dreams built up to whether or not this next appointment turns out positive or not. They're because they're thinking beyond that appointment. And so successes in life, same thing. You got to be thinking long term,
Yeah.
not just
Exactly.
bouncing ball, like, you're running, you're panicked because something bad happened today. Well, something bad, that's part of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Well, before the interview started, we were talking about the title of the show, "Bootstrapping Your Dreams." So I think it reflects very well. It sort of works along the same principles that you described. Like, because I come from technology startup background, and in the startup world, a lot of people they want to do big things, but they are always complaining about, I don't have enough money or whatever. And applying just these principles that you said, just improving a little bit every day, even if you don't have a lot of capital, even if you don't have a lot of resources, can add up. And the results are compound, right? It's always compounding, it's never linear. Because if you keep improving 1% every day, it's not 1% next day again, because it's 1% on top of the 1% that you improved yesterday.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much you can be assured the rest of your life, you're not going to have enough money to do everything you can think to do.
Yeah.
It's just like we used to say about, well, I won't say that, but anyway, as soon as you make $100,000, along with that, you develop the ability to spend $125,000.
Yeah.
Part of making $500,000 a year is you now have created the ability to spend $700,000.
Yeah.
And so, you'll never have enough money for all of because as you succeed in life, you do well, you become more educated on choices. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was available for a little bit more here, we a little bit more there. And then all of a sudden, when we're short here. So you're always going to be kind of short most of the time. And so the deal is, what can you do with what you got? And the great thing about not having all of the money, because you would waste it. And that's where you see people, the venture capital, they probably don't do it so much anymore. But in the beginning, when that started, they would go and they'd get seed money. They'd get, hundreds of thousands of dollars and this, that, and the other. And they do this and buy that and bring these systems in and hire these people and open these offices, sign these leases, and then they're out of business. And what they would learn if they just grounded out, they'd find out they could accomplish a lot of the same things with 10 cents on the dollar,
absolutely.
And also save a lot of time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because figuring out the trouble with someone giving you, like, you start a business and you say, I need the money and I need the people and this and that. You start off with the first ideas that are in your head. Well, it's usually not the first ideas that are the best ideas. But if you grow like you and I were talking, step by step, what happens is you're learning, you're getting wiser about everything as you go. And it's, to me, it's amazing how stupid people are. They think they can just get away with stuff by shortcutting, or like Bernie Madoff, it's just like, what was that idiot thinking? Like, it's great. It's great, Bernie. You built that thing, and great. Living in Park Avenue, great. But how's the food at Buckner in Raleigh, North Carolina? How's the oatmeal? How's the cold oatmeal there in your concrete cell the last years of your life? And how did it feel, Bernie, when your boys, the pride of your life, both, one died of cancer, the other one hung himself or something. You know what I'm saying? Because you made him so ashamed and ruined their life. You know what I'm saying? Your wife, how does that feel, Bernie? And did you think, the thing is, there's consequences when you're stupid. And the people that do the right things and live the high ground, and they put family, God, family first, and they pay their taxes rather than trying, they want to stay in the middle of the highway, because they know that's where you have the accidents when you get off the highway. So they don't like, how can I cut corners and how close to the end? It's like the people I used to tell our guys, it's like, people come in with all the wrong questions. It's like, what's the minimum activity I need to do to be successful? And I said, wrong question. I said, that's like saying, how close to the edge of the Grand Canyon can I get without falling in? I said, you want to be miles away from the edge of the Grand Canyon. And so the correct answer to that question is, as many as you can humanly get yourself to do that many appointments, because you want to create a massive margin for error. And like, you want to see so many people have so much going on, so that no matter how bad the odds are, no matter how many stupid people you run into, you're still going to find some successful, some people who want your service and like you, and want to do business with you and everything. But if you're trying to cut corners right from the beginning, you have no prayer of succeeding, And so that's why, like, the second chapter of my book, Serial Winner, is, once you lock in on the project you want to be, pursue, is like, when you start, don't do it, overdo it, give it everything you've got, because we always underestimate the price in time and money to make things happen. And so, I'm doing a renovation out here in Aspen. In the last couple of months, part of the thing going on is getting that lined up, because you have to do the building here in Aspen in the off season, spring and the winter. And so, I've been waiting for them to, they were desperately I'm in no panic to do it, but they, we got to get it done this spring and everything. Well, I said, well, give me an estimate. Get the estimate. They're supposed to give me the estimate like 6-7 weeks ago. And they drug their tail around. And the building thing starts here in like the middle of April. And so we're right there. And I'm leaving next week. And so I don't have time to clean out the condo and stuff like that to go in and, rebuild it. And so I might have figured out how to do that if the price had come in right. Price came in, I could tell, there's 150,000 at least in there that shouldn't be there. And, as a builder myself in the past, you have a sense of what things should cost. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put myself in that position. Whether I can afford it is not the thing. I'm just not going to, commit, because guess what? It's going to cost another 25, 30, 40% more than what they said it was going to do. And they're going to take longer to do it than they're telling me. It's like, what am I, stupid? You're not going to get it done when you say you're going to do it in the off season. You're going to be dragging around. You're going to have it halfway done when I come back in the summer. And then you're going to get another bunch done in the winter, the fall, and then probably finish it next spring. And so, I want to get your, I'm aware things take longer, cost more. And so I'm not going to fall like an idiot into that trap again, pretend like this is the first time in history it's going to come in on time and under budget. You know who does that? Our good friend Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is not doing this renovation. And so, the thing is, when you have these lessons in one side of your life, take them and apply them in other sides of your life. Things take longer. The wise approach is to overdo it and overdo your activity. Now, what people want to do is overdo other people's money, and stuff like that. No, overdo your activity, overdo your part. And then the other stuff will come in as you need it. And you'll be, by that, the process of overdoing your part, you will have learned how to make the wisest possible decision about spending those resources, And so
that's great.
It's all a process.
Well, thank you so much, Larry. This has been such an entertaining conversation, and every time I talk to you, I get to learn something new. So now, before I let you go, can you tell us if people want to connect with you, what is the best way to reach out?
Well, I've got the website called, it's weidelonwinning.com. I'm on Instagram, various ways, but, Larry Weidel Art. I also have a gallery, Axion Gallery. I have photography, Larry Weidel Photography. And so what a lot of people know me about lately, and you're on there, is the last couple of years I've started what's become a very popular podcast, the Million Dollar Mastermind Podcast.
Yeah.
That's Million Dollar Mastermind with Larry Weidel, and where I interview super successful people like Manoj. And, there's a thing that has occurred to me, and this goes to the root of why I'm very picky about who I get on my podcast. And that is that when you do something yourself, you start it and you do it, you wake up your subconscious and you learn things that you could never learn any other way. Let me give you an example. When I started in sales, and pretty much everybody will go through this who's in sales. Worry about learning the presentation and making the presentation without stumbling and fumbling and, making a fool out of yourself. But then once you get to where you've given that presentation 10, 15, 20 times, I don't know, what happens? This is a strange thing. And you tell me if you haven't seen the same thing. Like if you're giving talks or you're giving a sales presentation, what happens is that all of a sudden you're in the process of doing your presentation and you're about to give an illustration, explain something. So a new way of explaining that comes out your I mean, you're saying it and you're saying, is someone got a tape recorder going? I've never said this before in my life. I want to remember it. But,
Yeah.
you like, I can't believe I came up with that, but it's just like these. Have you experienced that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're like, where did that come from?
Mm.
But see, that's the magic. High achievers develop instinct. It just comes from inside them. You learn things from other people, and you do it over and over and over because you know that has been a successful pattern for other people. You know it'll work. But then from doing that, all of a sudden, your subconscious, your mind, which is a very powerful living thing, takes over it and makes it yours. Because you come up with your version of explaining it, which is even better than no one's ever thought about saying it that way. That's why high achievers are so frigging unique and fun to talk to, because I call that magic. You develop your own magic from doing the things that help you be successful. And the magic comes from just comes from out of you. You can't even predict where it comes from. It's like songwriters who write songs. They write up in the middle of the night, and they have a pen and paper by their bed, and they write it down. It's like, where did they come from? I don't know, but it came from the subconscious. And so, high achievers have magic, but they've had to earn it. So you and I are in the process of encouraging people to go forward and chase their dreams, and so they can develop their own magic. Because then they're a whole heck of a lot more fun for us to talk to.
Absolutely,
You know what I'm saying?
I think,
that's what we talk about in the Million Dollar Mastermind.
Awesome, great. Yeah, I call that process, like tuning frequency. Like you tune a musical instrument. Like you have to play it, you listen to it, and then you tune it. So as you said, like if you're not afraid of failure, if you keep doing things, you get better at it slowly, and then all of a sudden something flips, and that's when magic happens, as you said.
Yeah.
So,
and then you can use it the rest of your life, Manoj. You've got something that's yours that you can use the rest of your life, and so it's just a fun way to live, man.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Larry. We'll put those links in the show notes, and I hope to have another fun conversation with you soon. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much. Say hello to you boys.
Of course.